Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast on mental resilience for lawyers. इस एपिसोड के लिए हम अदल और सेहत दोनों को साथ लेके आए हैं. That means we have a mental health expert who's going to talk about the mental well-being of lawyers, and we also have a very renowned lawyer with us who's going to talk about the legal aspect. So we have Adal और सेहत together. इसी के साथ मैं अपने गेस्ट स्पीकर्स को इंट्रोड्यूस करना चाहूँगी. फर्स्टली ऑफ कोर्स आई विल इंट्रोड्यूस मिस्टर Jahanzeb Awan, who is a barrister, who is an advocate of the Supreme Court and is a partner at Haidermota Co. Then we have our mental health expert, Ms. Alizeh Valjee, who is a COO and co-founder of Saaya Health and a mental health expert. So my first question will be to you, Ms. Alizeh. What is the difference between, what exactly is mental resilience and how is it different from mental health or mental well-being?
Okay. So well-being, this word is really being thrown around these days. What it relates to is every area of our life. So जो हमारा माहौल है, our environment, our physical health, our emotional health, our relationships, personal and professional, our spiritual connection, how we feel about the world that we live in, our connection to a higher power, how religious we are maybe, occupational well-being as well, how satisfied are we in our career, how much are we growing, and then personal goals also come in. And globally, this is not part of the definition, but I also feel the relationship to the self should be in there. How do I feel about myself? My self-esteem. I think that should also really be in there. So all of these areas of your life affect your well-being, and your well-being affects all of these areas of your life. How healthy we are, or how not stressed we are, how good we're feeling, will also transmit to the other areas. So for instance, we will, if we're positive, then we're going to kind of infect that positivity into our co-workers or whoever is around us. Similarly, if we're down and we're stressed, we might be transmitting that to the people around us. That's just an example. But yeah, that's really what well-being is. Mental resilience is your ability, or how quickly or how smoothly you bounce back from a stressor. So if you think about a rubber band, you kind of stretch the rubber band, it bounces back, right? Sometimes it bounces back, sometimes it loses its shape completely, right? And it just becomes a longer rubber band. So if it bounces back quickly and it retains its shape, that means that you have good resilience, using the metaphor of the rubber band. Maybe it takes a longer time to bounce back, or if it changes its shape completely, then your mental health has actually been affected. Your ability going forward to bounce back from something, to cope with something, has been changed. Yeah, so that's when something has taken a toll on your mental health or your mental resilience.
So Alizeh, a follow-up question on that. आपने प्रोफेशनल्स के साथ काम किया है, so क्या लीगल प्रोफेशन में मेंटल रेजिलियंस की ज़्यादा ज़रूरत है, we should be concerned about it, or just generally professionals should be concerned about mental resilience?
So I think any kind of work is inherently stressful, but some stress is good and some stress is not so good, right? So some stress you can bounce back from, and then some changes the shape of the rubber band, if I go back to that example. Just like, some stress makes you perform, it makes you get the job done. When you come out of it, you're like, wow, I achieved that, and you feel maybe even better about yourself. And then some, it's like, because the same stressor is happening again and again and again, it might change you over time, or some stress might just be toxic stress, right? So putting up with difficult co-workers or unfair treatment or just unfair conditions takes a toll on you. So I think in the law firm, there is a certain amount of having to push yourself to just keep doing paperwork, putting in long hours, doing the grind. But other than that, there's a lot of pressure that you carry of the case itself, right? So the outcome of the case, whether it's a corporate law case, a family law case, criminal case, so that pressure of the outcome of the case, and then not really there's a certain amount of lack of control that you have on the outcome itself. I recently learned of the term litigation uncertainty. So to an extent, the outcome was going to depend on the judge, right? It's not really in your control, or maybe the conditions of that day, his temperament, or his technical expertise. So I think that takes a toll, and I hear the hours are very long, the pay is not very good in the early years. So, when you're putting in a lot and you're not getting that sense of satisfaction at the end of the day, that can be really challenging. I hear there's a lot of sexism also, so there are some cultural issues as well in the field. So there really is quite a lot to cope with. Emotional labor dealing with clients, emotional labor dealing with judges, and then apparently there's also the system. You have to also work against the system. You're not just going in and fighting a case. So, when you say fighting a case, I think that you're really fighting in that court. But then you're also fighting the system in many cases, because each case goes on for many, many years. I've seen a lot of people that are close to me, around me, battling with the system for a very long period of time. And sometimes things are just not in your favor, so a lot of time you're battling the system as well. So all of that, of course, can really take a toll.
Absolutely. So Mr. Awan, as Alizeh mentioned, that there's a lot of pressure that lawyers have to go through, and she mentioned this terminology, litigation uncertainty. So I'm sure you have been in the profession for more than 15 years, and you might be very familiar with this terminology and this feeling. So if you would tell our viewers about the challenges that a litigator faces, like going to court, or like before going to court preparing an entire case. So if you could speak about that.
Sure. पहली चीज़ तो ये कि अलीज़े ने बहुत अच्छे यहाँ पे नुकात उठाए हैं और बड़ी अच्छी बातें यहाँ पे she's brought to light and on the table. Uncertainty lies at the heart of our profession, and this is one of the challenges that we have to deal with. Perhaps we are not, as humans, designed to or deal with uncertainty in, let's say, the most efficient possible manner, for a lack of a better term. And uncertainty world over lies at the heart of the legal profession. Let me start by sort of making a slightly broader point and then turning to the issue at hand. आजकल जो हमारे मुल्क में और दुनिया भर में जो मसले मसाइल हैं, lawyers or litigators are not isolated from them, and they don't operate in a vacuum or a void. So हमारे यहाँ एक तो आजकल मुल्क में जो माशी हालात हैं या मुल्क में एक अनसर्टनिटी की फ़िज़ा है, उससे पूरा मुल्क ही अफेक्टेड है. And this is an apolitical statement. I'm talking at a more general level. और litigators उससे isolated इसलिए नहीं हैं because as it is we deal with a lot of uncertainty. Let me start outside of the courtroom. In litigation practice or a legal practice in general, there's no certainty how the year is going to pan out. We don't know how many cases are going to come in, how many times we'll be engaged by our clients, what our revenue streams are going to be. So you're already dealing with that uncertainty. Coupled with, or when there is a confluence with the existing economic conditions of the country, it makes it all the more challenging to deal with it. So even before a lawyer has stepped into a courtroom, जो आपके multifaceted challenges हैं वो already आपके सामने होते हैं. So I feel आजकल more than ever before, your mental well-being is compromised even before you've stepped into a courtroom. So ये एक चीज़ है जिसको collectively as a profession हमें देखना पड़ेगा, not just at the firm level but also as a profession. जहाँ पे फर्म्स भी हैं, जहाँ पे हमारे बार की लीडरान भी हैं, जहाँ पे हमारी जुडिशरी भी है, वी आर ऑल पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ द सेम सिस्टम, कि इस अनसर्टनिटी को हम कैसे डील कर सकते हैं. दूसरी चीज़ जो अलीज़े ने बात की वो भी बहुत एक अहम बात है कि अनसर्टनिटी इन लिटिगेशन. व्हाट्स द प्रिसाइज टर्मिनोलॉजी यूज्ड? लिटिगेशन अनसर्टनिटी. लिटिगेशन अनसर्टनिटी ये है कि इंसान की एक फितरत होती है कि प्रोसेस के ऊपर या आउटकम के या रिजल्ट के ऊपर वो अपना कंट्रोल रखना चाहता है. एक इंसानी फितरत है. And you have to really train yourself to deal with uncertainty on knowing that you have no or little control over the process or the outcome. So as lawyers, we prepare cases, we draft them, we do our research, we prepare for our advocacy or our oral arguments, and we present ourselves before a court. And वहाँ पे भी बहुत सारे challenges हैं. Courts are inundated with cases. जज हजरात कम हैं और cases की तादाद बहुत ज़्यादा है. So in the circumstances जो हमें challenge आता है वो ये आता है कि जी disposal rate कम है और humanly possible नहीं है. एग्जांपल दूं कि प्री 1947 जब ये सिंध चीफ कोर्ट हुआ करता था, हमारा सिंध हाई कोर्ट, तो वहाँ पे एक जज साहब के सामने 5 केसेस लगे। तो उन्होंने अपनी डायरी में नोट किया कि आई हैव एन एक्सेप्शनली हैवी बोर्ड टुडे। आज अगर आप अदालत में जज साहिबान दाखिल होते हैं और सामने 50, 60, 70 या 80 या कभी कभी 100 फाइलें भी रखी हुई हों, तो आप ये सोचें कि when you enter your office and you have 100 files waiting for you, or somebody says you have to take out 100 emails, in the next 4 hours, that immediately compromises the quality of your work and your mental well-being also. So एक तो हमने उस एंगल से इस चीज़ को देखना है। फिर अब आप दूसरी साइड पे आते हैं, बार की साइड पे, कि आप जाते हैं, कभी आपका केस चलता है, कभी उसकी बारी नहीं आती क्योंकि केसेस की तादाद इतनी ज़्यादा है, आपको वो रिलीफ मिलती है या नहीं मिलती, लेकिन आपकी क्लाइंट्स की तवक्कुआत बहुत ज़्यादा होती हैं कि जी ये हमें रिलीफ मिलेगी, चाहे वो इंटरम रिलीफ की हम बात करते हैं या फाइनल रिलीफ की बात करते हैं, तो वो प्रेशर भी हम पे एग्जिस्ट करता है। सो इसमें बहुत सारी चीज़ें हमारे कंट्रोल से बाहर हैं। सो अगर मैंने और आपने बैठ के किसी चीज़ को निगोशिएट करना है तो उसमें फिर भी एक सर्टेनिटी है, बट इधर यहाँ पे केस की बारी आना, फिर आप हैं, फाजिल बेंच है सामने और मुखालिफ आपके वकील साहब या साहिबा हैं। अब इस पूरे एक कॉम्बिनेशन के साथ केस को चलाना और अपने क्लाइंट के लिए एक फेवरेबल आउटकम लेना एक बड़ा मुश्किल और कठिन मरहला भी है और काम भी है। और एडवर्सेरियल सिस्टम में, although I'll come back to it a bit later, it's a winner takes all kind of a formula, right? So in an adversarial system, one party is bound to walk away feeling happy or having, gotten the relief that it is so desired in the circumstances, and one party is going to go home, dismayed and,
winner and loser mentality.
Absolutely. This also affects us as lawyers. Although I'll advert to it a bit later, कि एडवर्सेरियल सिस्टम का आपकी मेंटल वेल बीइंग के ऊपर एक बहुत बड़ा इम्पैक्ट होता है, बिकॉज वी टेंड टू जज आवरसेल्व्स एंड आवर प्रैक्टिस बेस्ड ऑन आवर सक्सेसफुल आउटकम्स। कितने केसेस में मुझे इंटरम रिलीफ मिली, कितने केसेस में फाइनल ऑर्डर मिला, और अगर नहीं मिला तो यू टेंड टू थिंक ये तो बड़ी मायूसी की बात है, या मुझे ये नाकामी का सामना क्यों करना पड़ा। एंड लॉयर्स ऑफन टेंड टू क्वेश्चन दिस, एंड दिस इज वन ऑफ द थिंग्स आई वांट टू टॉक अबाउट के अक्सर हमें सिखाया जाता है, हमारे माशरे में भी ये चीज़ है, ये जो हमारे थोड़ा सा एक ईस्टर्न कल्चर भी है कि पेरेंट्स बहुत ज़्यादा बच्चों को परफेक्शन की तरफ लेके जाते हैं, हर चीज़ में परफेक्शन की तरफ उनका रुझान होता है कि जी बच्चे ने क्लास में अव्वल नंबर पे ही आना है, अगर वो एथलेटिक्स में जाएगा या जाएगी तो उसने रेस में भी जो है वो जीतना है, और उसने ये भी काम अच्छा करना है और वो काम। इट्स द परसूट ऑफ एक्सेलेंस दैट वी डोंट टीच एज अ कल्चर। एक्सेलेंस में यू फेल, यू लर्न, यू रीलर्न एंड यू ग्रो एज अ कॉन्सिक्वेंस देयरऑफ। जब आपने एक आउटकम आपके सामने हो कि ठीक है जी, आइडियली ऑफ कोर्स यू वांट अ सक्सेसफुल आउटकम, बट नहीं है तो आप उससे क्या सीख के निकले या निकले, ये चीज़ बहुत अहम है, जो हमारे प्रोफेशन में थोड़ा सा प्रोफेशनल लेवल पे भी हम थोड़ा कम सीखते हैं, और माशरती तौर पे भी हम लोग डिज़ाइंड हैं कि हाँ जी अगर आज रिलीफ मिल गई तो बहुत अच्छा दिन था, और नहीं मिली तो बहुत ख़राब दिन था, और ये तो सारी वकालत ही मेरी जो है उसका सत्यानाश हो गया। ये इस किस्म की सोच को हमें तर्क करना पड़ेगा, और हमें एक ब्रॉडर लेवल पे सोचना पड़ेगा कि हम किस तरीके से अपने आप को सिखाएं। इट्स कॉल्ड प्रैक्टिस, दिस इज व्हाई इट्स कॉल्ड प्रैक्टिस एंड नॉट परफेक्ट, बिकॉज यू आर लर्निंग थ्रू आउट योर लाइफ। सो आपकी चाहे 15 साल की वकालत हो, 20 साल की हो, 30 साल की हो, आप कंटिन्यूसली एक एवोल्यूशनरी प्रोसेस में, और अगर हैं तो आप सीखेंगे भी, आगे भी बढ़ेंगे, अपनी गलतियों को का ज़ाला भी करेंगे, और अगर नहीं है तो वो नाकामियाँ और दुश्वारियाँ जो हैं वो आपके ऊपर एक बर्डन की तरह आती हैं, और आपके प्रोफेशनल ग्रोथ को भी कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ करती हैं, और आपके आउटलुक को भी कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ करती हैं, बिकॉज वी आर टॉट टू बी पेसिमिस्टिक ऑल्सो, राइट? So let's say if Alizeh is a client and she comes to me, the first thing I'm going to think of is the worst case scenario. सबसे बुरा इस जाम क्या हो सकता है सूरत हाल के अंदर, राइट? We are taught to think like that, and then we work our way towards various outcomes. तो हम उस चीज़ को अपनी पर्सनल लाइफ में भी इम्पोर्ट करते हैं कि वो हर चीज़ में वर्स्ट केस सिनेरियो हम सबसे पहले आर्टिकुलेट भी करते हैं और विजुअलाइज भी करते हैं, वो हमारी पर्सनैलिटी का एक हिस्सा बन जाता है। उसकी वजह से कितनी दुश्वारियाँ और मुश्किलात हमें सामना करना पड़ता है, हम लोग एक कॉन्शियस लेवल पे ये चीज़ सोचते नहीं हैं, बट व्हेन यू सिट डाउन एंड यू जस्ट टेक अ स्टेप बैक एंड यू थिंक everything doesn't have to be the worst case scenario, right? I mean, you have to learn to be optimistic also. You have to learn to see the glass as half full as opposed to seeing it as half empty. तो ये भी कुछ चीज़ें जिसमें हमें काम करना पड़ता है, और कभी ये चीज़ें हम खुद ही एक्सपेरिमेंट करके या ट्रायल एंड एरर की सूरत में सीख जाते हैं, और अगर नहीं है तो फिर हमें प्रोफेशनल्स जैसे अलीज़े हैं, वी शुड टर्न टू देम टू एक्चुअली गाइड अस एंड हेल्प अस ओवरकम आवर ऑब्स्टिकल्स एंड प्रॉब्लम्स। बिकॉज बात करना, एक सलाह करना और अपने आप को रेक्टिफाई करना उसकी रोशनी में, या वो सजेशंस देना उसको अपनी जिंदगी में, उन सजेशंस को इंटरनलाइज करना रादर देन के नाकामियों और दुश्वारियों को इंटरनलाइज करना। जब हम उन चीज़ों को इंटरनलाइज करते हैं तो हमारे लिए बाकी बहुत सारी मुश्किलात खड़ी होती हैं। सो for me, the bottom line is the profession is full of challenges. Yes, uncertainty is at the heart of it. But आजकल क्योंकि जो हालात हैं मुल्क में भी, दुनिया भर में भी, पूरे दुनिया में ही अनसर्टेनिटी की फिजा है. So that is affecting us as humans, as citizens or denizens of a particular country, and it is also affecting us as professionals. And part of that support needs to come from those around us. इसमें हमारी फर्म्स हैं, हमारे कॉलीग्स हैं, घर वाले हैं, दोस्त अहबाब, सोशल नेटवर्क में होना बहुत ज़रूरी है जहाँ पे आपकी जेन्युइन रिलेशनशिप्स हों, ग्रेटिफाइंग रिलेशनशिप्स के जो आपको सुकून और इत्मीनान देती हों, वो रिलेशनशिप्स होना. बट वी ऑल्सो नीड टू कम टुगेदर एज अ प्रोफेशन टू रिमूव दिस स्टिग्मा और टैबू फ्रॉम सीकिंग हेल्प. कि अगर हम मेंटल हेल्थ अपनी वेलबींग के हवाले से एक प्रोफेशनल के पास जाते हैं तो इसमें कोई ख़राबी नहीं है, इसमें कोई खामी नहीं है, मैं कमज़ोर बन जाऊँगा या बन जाऊँगी ये नहीं होगा. बिकॉज एक बड़ी अच्छी स्टडी जो इंटरनेशनल बार एसोसिएशन ने की, उन्होंने कहा बहुत सारे लोग इस बात से घबराते हैं कि अगर हम अपने एम्प्लॉयर के पास जाएंगे, अपने सीनियर के पास जाएंगे और उनको जाके अपनी मुश्किलात के बारे में बताएंगे, या अगर हमारे कोई पर्सनल चैलेंजेस हैं उनके बारे में डिस्कशन करेंगे, तो इट वुड बी परसीव्ड एज अ साइन ऑफ वीकनेस. तो इट शुड नॉट बी टेकन एज सच. एक फर्म्स के अंदर भी और प्रोफेशन में भी एक ओपन डिबेट और डिस्कशन इस चीज़ के बारे में होनी चाहिए, और जब तक वो नहीं होगी हम इस बहुत ही बड़े हर्डल को या बैरियर को क्रॉस नहीं कर सकते. और अलीज़े ने बहुत अच्छा ये बात बताई कि स्ट्रेस कम्स विद एवरीथिंग, विद एवरी प्रोफेशन, लेकिन सम प्रोफेशंस आर मोर प्रोन टू स्ट्रेस than others in the legal profession because of lopsided hours, because of demands by clients and of briefs, of preparation, time constraints होते हैं, उसकी वजह से कुछ प्रेशर्स इस प्रोफेशन में ज़्यादा हैं. हम सबको मिल के काम करना पड़ेगा, और पाकिस्तान में ख़ास तौर से हमारे तकरीबन माशाल्लाह 2 लाख के नज़दीक वकला हैं पूरे पाकिस्तान के अंदर. तो इट्स अ वेरी साइजेबल एंड अ वेरी लार्ज कम्युनिटी, एंड अ कम्युनिटी विच एक्सरसाइजेज a fair amount of influence over society. And आजकल आप देख रहे हैं हमारी अदालतों में जो केसेस आते हैं या डिसाइड होते हैं, या हमारे जो ओपिनियन शेपर्स हैं उसमें वकला भी शामिल हैं. इसलिए इस कम्युनिटी को अपनी मेंटल वेलबींग और अपनी मेंटल रेजिलियंस के ऊपर काम करना, उसको एड्रेस करना और उसके लिए सोल्यूशन निकालना बहुत ज़रूरी है.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Awan, for such a comprehensive and a beautiful answer.
Can I add on something?
Yes, absolutely.
Two things actually. So हमने uncertainty की काफ़ी डिटेल में बात की. So जो हमारा काम है, in the last 3 years, mental well-being has gotten a lot of focus and recognition in Pakistan since the pandemic. क्योंकि employers started to recognize that well-being का ताल्लुक है to your performance. So they started introducing well-being programs in the workplace. We've been doing workshops for close to, I think, personally I would have done workshops for about 3,000 people. And the theme that I've seen the most common, किस चीज़ से हमें stress ज़्यादा होता है, it's uncertainty. जब ये pandemic आया, we didn't know कि ये कब ख़त्म होगा, financial impact इसका क्या होगा, हमारी relationships, हमारी society किस तरह से change होगी. And that uncertainty, and I can't control the outcome, was the biggest stressor for everyone. And that's actually at the center of your profession as we're discussing. So that's something to think about.
So इसी के related, Alizeh, if you can tell us कि हम uncertainty को तो as such control नहीं कर सकते हैं, but we can build the resilience to actually address this particular issue. So कोई ऐसे mechanism या कोई ऐसी चीज़ कि आप क्या advise करती हैं that professionals should adhere to any practice?
Practice of acceptance. I think that's a very powerful practice. Of course, there are many things, and I think we'll be talking about them. Do you want me to go into the plan at this stage?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the first step is self-reflection and being aware of yourself कि हम कितने stress में हैं, right? So noticing कि आपकी क्या signs हैं of being stressed out. कुछ लोगों की नींद उड़ जाती है, कुछ लोगों की भूख उड़ जाती है. Some people eat more, some people sleep more, some people become more angry, more irritable. कुछ लोग खामोश हो जाते हैं, किसी से बात करना बंद कर देते हैं when they're stressed. So it can be very different. So being aware that what happens to me when I'm stressed out and starting to notice when you're seeing those changes in your behavior. But not just that, right? Not just looking at it from the outside, but also knowing ahead of time that, okay, I have a really intense caseload this week, or this particular case really pushes my buttons. It's going to be a difficult week for me. So knowing that, and then knowing that this is when I need to take extra care of myself. So self-monitoring, self-reflection is the first step. Second step is having a plan in place. What do I do for my well-being? What do I do to keep my resilience up? There's a lot of things that you can do, right? I think we all know them because human nature है कि हम ये चीजें करते ही आते हैं. जैसे कि exercise है, socializing with people that make us feel good, long drive पे चला जाना, like listening to music, any kind of creativity, dancing, singing, art, painting, cooking, baking, gardening, talking. I think that's the most effective form, to be honest. Talking to yourself, talking to another person, or even journaling. Because what happens is that when we get it out, it's no longer swimming around in our brain. क्योंकि जब हम, I think ये भी पाकिस्तान में मैं बहुत सुनती हूँ, लोग कहते हैं कि हम overthinking बहुत करते हैं. तो overthinking में होता ये है कि हम जिस event के बारे में सोच रहे हैं बार बार, तो उस event के साथ जो हमें stress feel हुआ था, वो भी हम बार बार feel कर रहे हैं. And that's taking a toll on us. So when we stop just letting it swim in our head और हम बाहर निकाल लेते हैं by talking or writing, it's no longer swimming. And maybe we'll get more awareness about it. Okay, why is this bothering me? What is it about this situation that's really affecting me? And the most important part, what can I do about it? Is there a lifestyle change I need to make? Is there someone I need to go communicate with? And what is it that I need to say to them? Right? So having a well-being plan in place, what am I going to do? Am I going to exercise? Am I going to play sports? Am I going to talk to my mother, talk to my wife, talk to my friend? Am I going to, practice religion, listen to talks by spiritual lecturers? It's different for everyone. So knowing what you're going to do to release that stress, and then third, figuring out a way to do it regularly. That's the most important piece. How can I make it a part of my daily life, right? It needs to be done a regular amount, so a few times a week. So for instance, if I do yoga, I do it every week for 2 times a week, right? That's my way of countering all the stress that I build up during the week. As your stressors increase, you need to also increase your stress management, right? So in the pandemic, my stress grew. I started a company, I got married, all of my stresses increased. Luckily, my sister adopted a cat. Being with that cat actually releases my stress. I notice a change in my breathing pace. Walking on grass has a similar effect. It kind of releases all the energy out of your body. So doing it regularly, the more the stress is going up, increasing the stress management. And हम अगर वक्ती तौर पे कुछ करते हैं to relieve our stress after a stressful incident, sure, it relieves our stress, but it's only the regular practicing of that that builds our resilience. So the next time the stressor comes up, how do we respond to it? How quickly do we bounce back from it? Are we unaffected when we come out at the other end, or has it changed the way that we think and we perceive and we process stress in the first place? Yeah. You talked about uncertainty and how do we deal with that. I would say acceptance of how things are is a very important part, right? So if you're in a system and the system has its issues, so coming to terms with that is really important. And then working within the system, right? So how do I cope with the challenges on a day-to-day basis? So acceptance needs to come first, and then learning to cope. I think especially for young people, that can be very challenging. I think young people these days believe that this is how the world should be. And I agree with you, this is how the world should be. But when it's not, we need to accept it and we need to learn how to live with it. Because if we keep fighting that this is how it is and this is how it should not be, then we're putting ourselves through a lot of stress. I mean, and that's your choice, right? Do you want to be an advocate for what's right, or do you want to, give relief to your stress, and you want to, focus on exceeding in your career. It really just depends on what your priorities are.
Yes, so Mr. Awan, उन्हीं की बात से मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूँगी कि जैसे लॉ स्कूल में हमें नहीं सिखाया जाता कि आपको यू शुड हैव अ थिक स्किन या लिटिगेशन में लंबे आवर्स हैं, हम तो मतलब वी जस्ट डू एन एकेडमिक स्टडी एंड देन द प्रैक्टिकल लाइफ का हमें इतना अंदाजा नहीं होता. सो मिस्टर अमान, आपकी जर्नी पे मैं थोड़ा सा फोकस करना चाहूँगी. बीइंग एट अ टॉप लॉ फर्म ऑफ दिस कंट्री एंड now mashallah you're a partner, so how was your journey starting out and then as an associate, then a senior person, then now a partner? So I think a lot of young lawyers would really want to know how you managed to build that resilience, because it's really not easy.
Let me just make a very quick point on what Alizeh just said before I turn to this. कि pandemic से हमने बहुत सारे असबाब भी सीखे हैं. There have been learnings, lessons that we learned. One of them was कि एक work life balance आप draw कर सकते हैं, और वो किस शक्ल में हो सकता है कि हमने although litigation में बड़े महदूद लेवल पे लेकिन घर से भी काम करके देखा कि जी अगर लोग एक अपना प्लान बनाते हैं, जिस तरह अभी एलिज़े ने कहा कि जी आप अपने plan your week ahead. So one of the things we do in our practice is every Friday evening we sit down and we plan our next week or 2 weeks ahead. Of course, that can never factor in your new filings. New filings will come in at the last minute and so forth, but at least you have a plan for the week ahead of you. उसके बाद ये insistence नहीं होनी चाहिए कि form over substance. People should be able to work at their own pace. ठीक है, if you're required to be in office for a meeting, or let's say something is being done collectively as a team, fine. Otherwise, people should be left to draw their own balance. If I want to, let's say, leave work early, go home, have early dinner with my parents, my family, my spouse, whatever it may be, I should be able to do that and then continue working. It's the final product that matters. It's timely delivery, it's quality, more than the number of hours that I actually spend in the office. So हमें वो जो lessons हमने pandemic में सीखे हैं उसको भी implement करने की ज़रूरत है. Turning to this, I think I've been, alhamdulillah, very, very fortunate that both my practices, my current practice and my senior partner, and like an elder brother and friend, Haidermota, and in my previous practice at Khushbakht Co, where of course my mentor Khalid Anwar Saab and then Rashid Anwar Saab, all these people are inherently very kind people and have taken a view which reflects in the philosophy of the firm as well. And I think that has also shaped me to a very large extent. How you get groomed professionally. जिस तरह फली नरीमान साहब कहते हैं कि वो जिस तरह घोड़े का पूछते हैं कि किस अस्तबल से इसका ताल्लुक है, किस टेबल से है, उसी तरह वकीलों के बारे में कहते हैं कि जी किस टेबल से है या किस लॉ फर्म से है. एंड उससे ऑटोमेटिकली एटलीस्ट लोग 90% अंदाज़ा लगा लेते हैं कि आपकी तरबियत क्या होगी और आपकी डिस्पोजिशन क्या होगी, आपकी एथिक्स कैसी होंगी, आपके फाउंडेशनल प्रिंसिपल्स कैसे होंगे. So I was very fortunate and blessed that I've had the advantage of being at 2 law firms and perhaps 2 of the most gentle practices in the country, जहाँ पे काम भी top notch है, cutting edge है, but there is a large degree of empathy in how seniors conducted themselves, how they interacted with their juniors, जहाँ पे कोई abuse का culture नहीं है या harassment का culture नहीं है, और जहाँ पे अगर लोगों को मुश्किलात कोई आती हैं या उनके कोई मसाइल हैं, तो you have a sounding board where people are willing to sit down and listen to your problems and try to the best extent possible to find a solution to it also. Of course, it's not always possible to find a solution to every problem, and perhaps some of the solutions lie without as opposed to within a firm. But nonetheless, having a culture like that at least has shaped me as a professional. The opportunities I got, and we all make mistakes. But how those mistakes firstly are dealt with by you, being harsh on yourself and learning to grow as a consequence of those, and more importantly, how they are received by whoever your mentor or your pupil master or your senior is, also determines your outlook towards practice. Because we can reprimand people for making the smallest of mistakes, or we can sit down with them and hold a conversation, and there are gentle ways of giving feedback also. Feedback that I have received over the years and feedback which I try and impart in the same manner. एंड आई थिंक थोड़ी सी पेशेंस, थोड़े से अगर इत्मीनान से लोगों को समझाया जाए, उनके गलतियों का अजाला किया जाए, and knowing at the end of the day, and this is one of the things I've learned from, let's say, the senior partner here and at Alizeh Co, was कि at the end of the day, जिम्मेदारी आपकी अपनी है. And within that, if you are willing to stand up and say, fine, it's my responsibility, and I'm, for example, Alizeh साहब के साथ कोर्ट जाते थे, उनको असिस्ट करते थे, और कभी हम एरर्स करते थे कि फाइल में कोई कमी पेशी रह गई, कोई केस लॉ निकालने में कमी पेशी रह गई. कभी भी खालिद अनवर साहब ने ये मुड़ के नहीं कहा कि जी जज साहब को कि देखें ये गलती हो गई है जहांजेब से, या मेरे पास अभी फाइल इस वजह से कंप्लीट नहीं है. He always stood up, and of course, mashallah, he's a brilliant man and a brilliant mind, and he could overcome these obstacles very easily. But nonetheless, कभी भी हमने ये नहीं फील किया कि जी हम पे ये जिम्मेदारी ट्रांसफ़र की जा रही है. और इसी तरह when I look at Haidermota, he espouses the same qualities. He's willing to stand up, he's willing to take responsibility, और अगर कोई errors आते हैं या कोई shortcomings या lapses होते हैं तो वो कभी भी client के सामने या otherwise वो चीज़ reflect नहीं करती on those around him. So ये भी एक quality है which as seniors now, as we grow up and as we get along.
मिस्टर रहमान, इसी की ही रिलेटेड जैसे आपने कल्चर की बात की कि ऐसा कल्चर होना चाहिए कि आपको अकोमोडेट करे या आपकी ज़रूरियात को अकोमोडेट करे. सो इसी के कॉन्ट्रास्ट में अगर हम बात करें, देयर आर मेनी पीपल हु लीव द प्रोफेशन बिकॉज वो ऐसी फर्म्स में जाते हैं जहाँ की प्रैक्टिसेस इतनी अकोमोडेटिंग नहीं है. सो और ऊपर से फिर आपका केस का प्रेशर अलग होता है, और इसी में अगर हम सोल प्रोप्राइटर्स को भी अगर डाल देते हैं जिनकी अपनी इंडिपेंडेंट प्रैक्टिस होती है, so how do they what is your recipe or secret mantra that any lawyer could adopt जो कि अपने अंदर resilience build कर सके, especially in circumstances जो इतने welcoming नहीं है.
Okay, so ये बहुत अच्छा आपने नुक्ता उठाया. उसकी वजह यह है कि 99% वकील जो है वो किसी भी फॉर्मल स्ट्रक्चर के बाहर काम करते हैं. मीनिंग देयरबाय कि फर्म स्ट्रक्चर के अंदर अगर पाकिस्तान में वकला की तादाद देखी जाए तो वो बहुत थोड़ी है, जहाँ एक फॉर्मल फर्म स्ट्रक्चर हो और आपको कुछ सर्टेनिटी हो इन टर्म्स ऑफ प्रोग्रेशन, इन टर्म्स ऑफ ट्रेनिंग, इन टर्म्स ऑफ लर्निंग एंड एडवांसमेंट इन योर करियर. तो 99% वकील क्योंकि उसके बाहर हैं या सोल प्रोप्राइटरशिप या डिफरेंट मॉडल्स में काम करते हैं, तो इसलिए उनके हवाले से कुछ बातें बहुत ज़रूरी हैं. वो ये हैं कि एक तो हमें इस प्रोफेशन में रहने के लिए थोड़ा सा एक लॉन्ग टर्म आउटलुक लेना पड़ता है. हमारे बहुत सारे दोस्त हैं जो हमारे साथ यूनिवर्सिटीज़ या कॉलेजेस में थे, एंड दे वेंट लेट्स से इनटू इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंकिंग, एंड उसके बाद उनके करियर एक स्पैन ऐसा आया कि जी इन 10, 15, 20 years you work, you get burnt out, but you retire because you've made a sizable sum of money, and that was your career cycle. And perhaps some of my investment banker friends, I'm not going to name them lest the FBR decides to approach them, have retired also at my age, right? So careers की और professions की अपनी cycles होती हैं. इसमें एक तो आपका लॉन्ग टर्म आउटलुक लेना थोड़ा सा ज़रूरी होता है कि आपका ये प्रोफेशन God willing and subject to health and mortality of course, आप 35, 40, 50 साल इस प्रोफेशन में प्रैक्टिस करेंगे ऑन एवरेज. सो एक तो आपने वो लॉन्ग टर्म आउटलुक लेना है अपनी प्रैक्टिस के अंदर. हमारे यहाँ बहुत सारे जो यंग वकला हैं वो डे 1 पे, और जो कि रोल मॉडल्स राइटफुली बनाना चाहिए हमारे जो सीनियर वकला हैं उनको, बट यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड कि उस काबिलियत, उनकी जो लियाकत है, उनकी जो मेहनत है वो 30, 40, 50 साल के ऊपर मबनी है. आप डे 1 पे उसको एमुलेट करके किसी भी फॉर्म में, चाहे वो अच्छे ब्रीफ की शक्ल में है, अच्छी कॉम्पनसेशन की शक्ल में है, मैं ये नहीं कह रहा कि अच्छी कॉम्पनसेशन नहीं मिलनी चाहिए, आई एम जस्ट सेइंग उस लेवल पे पहुंचने के लिए इतने साल की मेहनत और इतने साल की एक मुशक्कत उसके पीछे होती है. इस चीज़ को कभी भी नज़रअंदाज ना करें. दूसरा, एज आई सेड, अनसर्टेनिटी को एज अलीज़े सेड एक्सेप्ट करना चाहिए, इम्ब्रेस करना चाहिए. ये जी अनसर्टेनिटी है इस प्रोफेशन में, तो या तो आप उसको उसी हिसाब से डील कर सकते हैं, और जहाँ कोई मौका मिले, जैसे ये डिस्कशन आप होल्ड कर रही हैं, दिस इज़ एन एफर्ट इन ब्रिंगिंग अबाउट अ चेंज इन द लीगल प्रोफेशन. इसी तरह आपका अदल और सेहत का एक इनिशिएटिव है जो बड़े अहम मौज़ूआत के ऊपर गुफ्तगू करता है और रोशनी डालता है. दीज आर एफर्ट्स विच वी कैन डू एज लॉयर्स to play our part in bringing about a change in the profession. हमें ये काम करने चाहिए. जब हम उस पोजीशन में आ जाएं जहां हम पॉलिसीज़ को इन्फ्लुएंस कर सकें, तो जो हमने चीज़ें सीखी हैं हमें उनको कोशिश करके अमली जामा पहनाना चाहिए rather than becoming a part of the status quo. So ये कुछ चीज़ें हैं जो हमें देखनी चाहिए. Plus as I said, perfection का pursuit नहीं होना चाहिए, excellence का pursuit होना चाहिए. अपनी गलतियों से, अपने challenges से सीखें और उसको सीखते हुए उनको अपनी ज़िंदगी में उसके जो यानी lessons हैं उनको internalize और incorporate करें, उस नाकामी और मायूसी को ना करें. बिकॉज हमारे यहाँ जो 90% बुकलाएँ आजकल, जैसे मैंने बिल्कुल आगाज़ में बात की, विच इज़ वेरी क्लोज टू माई हार्ट, कि आजकल इस अनसर्टनिटी से इकोनॉमिक क्लाइमेट है पाकिस्तान में भी, दुनिया भर में भी, हमारे जो सोल प्रोप्राइटर्स हैं, आई एम श्योर दे आर स्ट्रगलिंग टू मेक एंड्स मीट, कोई यूटिलिटीज़ हैं और बहुत सारे मसले मसाइल हैं. सो लेसन फॉर मी एटलीस्ट, माई लर्निंग हैज़ बीन कि चैलेंजेस को अपॉर्चुनिटी समझें. जब आपकी ग्रोथ होती है और ख़ास तौर से जब आप अपने कंफर्ट जोन से बाहर निकलते हैं, तो सबसे ज़्यादा ग्रोथ वहीं पे लाई करती है. समटाइम्स यू नीड टू लुक एट दैट डिस्कम्फर्ट ऑफ फेलियर, disappointment, disillusionment, look at it in the face and address it. But flip side is, बहुत सारे वकील स्पेसिफिकली लिटिगेशन छोड़ जाते हैं. सबसे पहले तो इस चीज़ पे बात करते हैं, प्रोफेशन पे तो आते हैं. बहुत सारे वकील लिटिगेशन छोड़ जाते हैं और अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह अच्छे एवेन्यूज़ हैं जहाँ आप ट्रांजैक्शन साइड पे काम कर सकते हैं, इन हाउस काम कर सकते हैं, एकेडेमिया में काम कर सकते हैं, प्रो बोनो काम कर सकते हैं, जो कि शायद आज से 15, 20, 25 साल पहले मौजूद नहीं थे, या एटलीस्ट इस फरावानी से मौजूद नहीं थे ये ऑप्शंस. लेकिन इस चीज़ पे भी हमें गौर करना चाहिए कि हाउ कैन वी कम टुगेदर एज अ फ्रेटर्निटी. हम बहुत सारी और चीज़ों पे तो बातें करते हैं कि हम एक दूसरे को सपोर्ट प्रोवाइड कर सकें. यंग जो एंट्रेंट्स आ रहे हैं, उनकी ट्रेनिंग, उनकी कॉम्पनसेशन, उनकी सपोर्ट कैसे देखी जा सकती है. देखिए, बड़ा मुश्किल सवाल है और बड़ा आसान है कहना कि इसको इस तरीके से रेगुलेट कर लें या उस तरीके से रेगुलेट कर लें. बट एज अ बॉडी हमें बैठ के ये फैसला करना पड़ेगा कि हम some of the larger firms, how they can contribute, and how as a profession we can provide support to younger lawyers, जिस तरह जिनकी कोई financial situation हो, struggle हो, and they leave the profession, that let's say go and join an in-house practice or go work elsewhere to make sure they're able to make ends meet. And I know for a fact कि COVID में बहुत सारे लोगों के साथ ये हुआ है. जो आपने uncertainty बात की, a lot of us were faced with that uncertainty कि how the profession is going to pan out this year, how practice is going to pan out. और बहुत सारे लोग छोड़ गए प्रोफेशन पैंडेमिक के अंदर इसी वजह से कि अनसर्टनिटी. सो एज अ आई कीप ऑन रिपीटिंग एंड रीइटरेटिंग दिस कि जब तक हम साथ बैठ के इस अहम मौजू पे बात नहीं करेंगे, और ना सिर्फ बात करें बल्कि हम सॉल्यूशंस निकालें कि लोगों को, अपने वकीला भाइयों और बहनों को किस तरह हम सपोर्ट कर सकते हैं, जब तक हम इस चीज़ पे बात करके सॉल्यूशंस निकाल के उनको इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं करेंगे, लोग लिटिगेशन भी छोड़ते जाएंगे और इसी तरह बाकी फैसेट्स ऑफ द प्रोफेशन है उसके साथ भी फिर लोग इंगेज नहीं करते. दे गेट अ लॉ डिग्री एंड दे डू वेरियस अदर थिंग्स बट डोंट परस्यू द लॉ. एट द एंड ऑफ द डे दिस इज नॉट जस्ट एन आइडियलिस्टिक स्टेटमेंट और नॉट आई मीन इन अ मैनर स्पीकिंग नॉट यूटोपियन आइडियल, बट आप कम से कम एक प्रोफेशन में जब आते हैं तो आपके दिमाग में ये एक चीज़ तो होती है कि मैं किस तरीके से कंट्रीब्यूट करूँगा इस माशरे में या करूँगी इस माशरे के अंदर. बार की साइड से फिर हमारे जज हजरात हैं जो जजमेंट्स लिख के लॉ को एडवांस करते हैं, फिर हमारे लोग जो प्रो बोनो प्रैक्टिस करते हैं वो एक बड़ा अहम काम करते हैं. तो हमने इस चीज़ पे रोशनी डालनी है कि अपने प्रोफेशनल की कोर वैल्यूज़, दिस इज़ अ नोबल प्रोफेशन, हम उन कोर वैल्यूज़ को सामने रखते हुए किस तरीके से एक सपोर्ट स्ट्रक्चर या फ्रेमवर्क बना सकते हैं कि यंग एंट्रेंट्स इनकरेज भी हों, उनको एक आगे पाथवे भी नज़र आए और वो कंट्रीब्यूट भी कर सकें.
एब्सोल्युटली मिस्टर अवान, मैं स्पेसिफिकली फ्रेमवर्क्स के हवाले से आपसे बात करूंगी, बट पहले अलीज़े ने एक पॉइंट मेक किया कि आपने कोई ना कोई एक्टिविटी करनी होती है ताकि आप उस स्ट्रेस या प्रेशर से को हैंडल कर सको. उन्होंने कहा आप मतलब योगा कर सकते हो, मेडिटेशन या साइकिलिंग या कोई भी ऐसी चीज़ जो कि आपको किसी किस्म का रिलीज दे. सो मिस्टर अवान, एज अ लिटिगेटर माई सेल्फ, एंड आप इस प्रोफेशन में बहुत टाइम से हैं, सो लिटिगेशन में कभी कभार ऐसा होता है कि आप एक लूप में चल रहे होते हो एंड कॉन्स्टेंटली समटाइम्स आपके 3 दिन आप ऑल नाइटर्स पुल करते हो और करना पड़ता है कभी कभी ऑन सम वेरी मेजर केसेस. सो यहाँ पे जब आपका बैलेंस ही नहीं हो रही होती है चीज़, सो हाउ डिड यू इन योर पर्सनल प्रोफेशनल करियर, आपने कैसे मैनेज किया, एंड व्हाट आर सम ऑफ द थिंग्स दैट यू वुड रेकमेंड अस टू आल्सो अडॉप्ट टू मेंटेन दिस सॉर्ट ऑफ अ वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस व्हिच इज एटलीस्ट हमारी सैनिटी में कंट्रीब्यूट करे.
So a very, very valid question. In fact, a critically important question, both from a longevity perspective when you look at the profession and otherwise. इसमें देखें पहली चीज़ तो ये है कि we have to set our priorities right. Lawyers also tend to be very ambitious in terms of what all we can achieve. So we want to achieve things within our professional sphere, within the firm, outside the firm. एक तो list of priorities हमें बनानी चाहिए कि what are our priorities. It is not always in our control to, for example, अगर आज आपके पास एक client आ जाए, आज Saturday का दिन है और let's say a client walks in at 5 in the evening and says, Khushbakht, I want you to file this case on Monday morning and get me relief. There are two options you have. One is, of course, to say that, it's a weekend and I'm not going to do this because this is time for me to rest and recuperate. So please come back on Monday and we'll think about filing on Tuesday or Wednesday. If there's no urgency or the client is an accommodating one, of course, that's possible. In a lot of instances, there's genuine urgency in the matter. And then there are only two options, which is that the client would say, fine, let me go elsewhere and get this done. Or you have to take on the brief and compromise your weekend in the process. And then let's say you had a long week and you wanted to rest over the weekend to recharge your batteries, but you're unable to do so. So ये भी एक चीज़ है जिसको हम factor in नहीं कर सकते. लेकिन अगर हमारी list of priorities हमारे सामने हो, तो जब हमें मौका मिलता है, because हमारा भी काम cyclical है. There are months or weeks where we are exceedingly busy, but then comes a lean period also. So हम जब अपनी प्रायोरिटीज़ को सामने रखते हुए चलते हैं तो एटलीस्ट इफ नॉट ऑन अ डेली बेसिस हम एक स्फीयर के अंदर या एक फ्रेमवर्क के अंदर एटलीस्ट अपनी बैलेंसिंग एक्सरसाइज कर सकते हैं. So जैसे हमारी कोर्ट की छुट्टियां आती हैं विंटर्स में भी और समर में भी, तो हम वो एक अपॉर्चुनिटी लेते हैं टू रिप्लेनिश आवर बैटरीज एंड सो फोर्थ, एंड वी कैन टेक दोस अपॉर्चुनिटीज थ्रू आउट द ईयर, रिकॉग्नाइजिंग कि अच्छा this week appears not to be a very busy week, and let's say let me do what I have not done in the last month or so to spend time with my family. Although exercise or meditation or yoga or some form of activity, even if it's just for 30 minutes in a day, is exceedingly vital. And it is not necessary कि जी आप मिसाल के तौर पे एक्सरसाइज करनी है तो उसका एक फॉर्मल रेजीम हो. आप ऑफ कोर्स जिम जा सकते हैं, एटलीस्ट अगर वीकेंड मिला लेते हैं तो हफ्ते में 2 या 3 दिन तो ये चीज़ मुमकिन होती है. बट अदरवाइज ऑल्सो वी लुक एट वेरियस थिंग्स. सो सम ऑफ अस कॉलीग्स गेट टुगेदर ओकेजनली एंड हम लोग शाम में वी गो देयर इज अ पार्क क्लोज बाय, and of course we have a novel way of dealing with this. So we are in our work clothes and we just put on our trainers and go walk for 30 minutes and come back and change our shoes and continue doing our meetings, etc. But you have to find that time. If I say कि अच्छा I'm going to change into my gym gear and I'm going to make my way to a gym, ideally I want to do that 6 days a week. But if I can't do it, there's still ways of retaining that balance. You take 30 minutes, you organize yourself. If it's just meditating or doing yoga or just going for a run or a walk, you can find ways provided it is in your list of priorities. So if it's there in a very amorphous manner in your list of priorities, it won't work. You have to write it down, you have to crystallize it, this is something I need to do. Or if let's say you set a target that I'm going to do 5,000, 10,000 steps a day, you can meet those targets even without disrupting your schedule otherwise. So we have to find ways and creative ways of making sure that we are looking after our mental well-being. And जहाँ हमें वो opportunity मिलती है तो हम, as I said, not ideal, but हम compensate करने की कम से कम कोशिश करें, even if we can't do it on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. So, Alizeh, let's talk about systems and frameworks now. तो जैसे आपका एक्सपीरियंस है ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के साथ, लॉ फर्म्स के लिए कोई ऐसा प्रोग्राम या कोई ऐसा सिस्टम शुड बी इन प्लेस, या बार एसोसिएशंस कुछ इस तरह से करें ताकि हम मेंटल वेलबींग ऑफ लॉयर्स को ज़्यादा फोकस करें. सो आपका क्या रिकमेंडेशंस होंगी?
So before I begin that, I just want to, what you've talked about right now, it's having a personal mental resilience plan, right? So what time of day am I going to allocate to this walk? What is the activity that's most accessible to me? So just reflect on that. What can be your mental resilience plan? It's very important to have, because I think we ensure that we sleep and we eat well and we go to the doctor when we're ill, but it's not just important to do that for your physical health, it's becoming exceedingly important to do that for your mental health as well. Talking about frameworks, so We work with corporate organizations, we work with educational institutions, non-profits, startups, and there's certain services that we offer at each of them. Starting off with workshops to raise awareness, because mental health is still a very new field in Pakistan. So speaking about it to the layperson in a way that's understandable for them, getting them to start to think about, okay, what are my stressors? What happens to me when I'm under stress? What can I do to manage stress, similar to the conversation we've had today? In what cases does professional help come in handy? What is counseling? What is therapy? Is it medication? No, it's not. It's different. It's talk therapy, right? How can a counselor help me? So we really have those conversations, and we help you to identify when do I need to go seek professional help, in what cases do I need to go seek professional help. So I'll also tell you here, if it's affecting all areas of your life, if it's affecting, if there's a sudden change in your ability to perform, maybe you're very demotivated, maybe you can't focus on your work, and if it happens from time to time, that's different. But if it's happening ekdam se and it's persisting, or you're overworking, sometimes you really push yourself really hard because you're in this state of mind where, okay, I'm just working. So kind of a change that takes place in your productivity, then a change that takes place in your relationships. Either you're having a lot of conflict, or you've completely stopped trusting people and relying on people, or you're escaping with your friends and the other areas of your life are suffering. The third area, your physical well-being, right? If that's suffering, if your sleep is affected, your appetite is affected, or maybe there's a presence of self-harm. Sometimes we put ourselves in very high-risk situations to escape the emotions that we're feeling. Maybe driving your bike really fast, speeding, or physically harming yourself, or substance and alcohol abuse. I think there's a very high level of substance and alcohol abuse in the law profession from what I've seen, if I can say. But it's a coping mechanism, right? So when we have a lot of stress, we need a lot of stress management. Sometimes unhealthy stress management is just more accessible to us. So there's a culture around it, right? So we need to create a culture around healthy stress management. And knowing that when you are pushing yourself very hard, then you need a very deep release. Basically, when I had a really difficult week last week I had a very difficult week. I made sure I went to the beach. Just switched off for the day, just completely relaxed and let go. Right? Very, very important. So knowing when to seek professional help, how professional help helps you. So we start off at the grassroots level, we start off with raising awareness. Getting people ready to seek that, take that step to seek help also is very important. फिर हम उनको counseling services offer करते हैं. So each organization has a panel of online therapists and online counseling platform that they can avail. So you can use it at the comfort of your time, wherever, home, office space, and it's completely confidential. No one else will know that you're seeking therapy. So we also then give data to the organizations that, okay, this time of year there's more stress, or this department has more stress, and this is what you can do about it. Coming up with further changes that the organization can take to improve themselves. Doing something at the policy level is another thing that you can do. But I think when it comes to the legal profession, the legal system, the change or the decision needs to come from you. So all of you need to kind of sit down together and figure out, okay, counseling is something that works for everyone, awareness raising is something that is useful for everyone. But at the policy level, at the system level, what changes can you make to cater to the well-being of lawyers and everyone in the system? There are resources available internationally for well-being in the legal profession, but you will have to adapt it to our culture and our system. I've also seen programs which are for drug and alcohol abuse, so support groups for people who are abusing drugs and alcohol within the legal system. So these are certain, introducing maybe like yoga, mindfulness in the workplace, in the law firm, or if you're working as an individual, maybe having classes or programs available for lawyers, having something at the court. These are just some suggestions, but maybe if we sit down together, because you are the experts in your field, maybe we can, exchange notes and come up with something.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Awan, frameworks की मैं आपके साथ ही बात करूँगी. आप एक बहुत बड़ी लॉ फर्म के पार्टनर हैं और आपकी लीडरशिप स्टाइल इज ऑल्सो ग्लोबली रिकग्नाइज्ड एंड आप 50 लीडिंग लाइट्स व्हिच इज अ यूके लेड इनिशिएटिव जो कि अवार्ड करता है उन लीडर्स को, उस लिस्ट में उनका नाम आता है जो कि काइंड होते हैं, एम्पैथेटिक होते हैं, जो कि एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में एक मतलब एक अच्छे तरीके से उसको आगे लेके चलते हैं. सो मिस्टर अवान, ऐसे कोई टेक अवेज या कोई ऐसी चीज़ें जो बाकी लीडर्स पे जो हमें देख रहे हैं वो अडॉप्ट करें, क्योंकि आई नो लॉट ऑफ पीपल हु वर्क हियर. आई हैव नोन यू सिंस आई थिंक मोर देन 7 years नाउ, सिंस लॉ स्कूल. मैंने आपको, एंड माशाल्लाह यू हैव अ फैंटास्टिक करियर. मतलब मैंने आपको कभी नहीं देखा कि आप कभी किसी से अनकाइंड हुए हो या आपने गुस्से से बात की हो, या यू ऑलवेज अवेलेबल टू हेल्प पीपल, सो विच इज़ वेरी रेयर इन लॉयर्स. एंड अगर आई थिंक जितने वो सक्सेसफुल होते हैं उनके अंदर ज़्यादा एरोगेंस आता है, बट इट्स ऑपोजिट आपके उसमें. So what are the things that you adhere to, and any practices that the organization should also adopt?
Okay. Firstly, in terms of the award, I want to, in general, dedicate it to my current and former colleagues, and in particular to you, Khushbakht, to Maria Shah, and to Fawad Baloch. And I really want to express my gratitude for that. And secondly, जहाँ तक सवाल है काइंडनेस का, तो एक सिंपल प्रिंसिपल अगर आप जिंदगी में रखें, प्रोफेशनली या पर्सनली भी, एम्पैथी, कि आप लोगों के स्टेप इनटू देयर शूज एंड थिंक अबाउट इट. यू मे नॉट ऑलवेज बी एबल टू कम अप विद अ सॉल्यूशन, बट यू कैन एटलीस्ट ट्राई एंड रीच अ समवॉट win-win situation. Secondly, do to others what you expect others to do. You want to be treated kindly, you want to be treated fairly, in an equitable manner. Do the same to people and it comes back to you. You know, kindness always reciprocates itself. There is just no doubt about it in my mind. There are going to be occasions where you might come across people or individuals who are not able to do it to that extent or otherwise. But in my opinion, kindness will always come back to you, and perhaps in multiples, not just, you know, at the same level that you have reciprocated. So my message is empathy. Try and empathize with people, try and step into their shoes, and we need to do that, whoever is in a position in the industry, whether seniors or in bar associations, कि हमें ये empathy का culture, kindness का culture थोड़ा सा introduce करना चाहिए. And I want to draw upon what Alizeh said. Perhaps we need to think about a mechanism also in our respective bars and, you know, my association. There are a lot of good initiatives that we work on, you know, provincial bar level पे and, you know, national bar levels के ऊपर, और अच्छे initiatives पे हम काम करते हैं. Maybe one of those could be that we provide a formal structure, confidential one, where you're able to, in your own privacy, seek help, and that's the support which we can provide, and which we can, you know, all of us as lawyers can get behind an initiative like that, where our colleagues who we may not even know at workplace and otherwise, people we meet in court, हमारे जो दोस्त हैं, हमारे colleagues जो हमें courts में मिलते हैं, क्या क्या परेशानी और क्या क्या मसाइल का दो चार उनको सामना करना पड़ता है, उससे दो चार है वो. तो ये हम, अगर अलीज़े ने जो बात की, what she provides to organizations, if we can consider working on something like that, where for the profession at large we can have an initiative like that, where people can in the comfort of their own private space seek help, इससे भी I think एक बहुत change आएगा. और ज़रूरी नहीं है, देखिए इस प्रोफेशन में जहाँ पे बहुत सारी इस किस्म की मिसालें मिलती हैं कि you know, people been meted out with unfair or unkind treatment, etc. वहाँ पे बहुत अच्छी मिसालें भी मौजूद हैं. So we need to bring the spotlight or focus on that, and we also need to make sure that if we have received kindness as part of our professional career and growth, that's our duty and responsibility to pass it on to others. So I think I'm just doing my small part in passing it on, whatever I have received throughout my career.
So just to build upon that, Mr. Awan, so एक तो मैं बार एसोसिएशंस की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी पे बात करना चाहूँगी, एंड द अदर थिंग इज कि लॉ फर्म्स की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. सो इफ़ यू कैन जस्ट वेरी ब्रीफली, आप कोई दो चीज़ें जो कि लॉ फर्म्स को एट दिस स्टेज अडॉप्ट करनी चाहिए और बार एसोसिएशंस को. अभी अलीज़े ने भी हमारे डिस्कशन से पहले मेंशन किया था कि आप अगर एक रूम डेडिकेट करते हो जिसमें आप फैसिलिटी प्रोवाइड करो, एनी लॉयर कुड गो, लेट्स से कोर्ट्स के अंदर एक रूम हो, गो फॉर काउंसलिंग, तो वहाँ पे क्योंकि हमारे प्रोफेशन में जस्ट जनरली इन द सोसाइटी देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ मेंटल हेल्थ का टैबू है, स्टिग्मा है, सो नोबडी वुड रियली गो देयर, वुड फील अ लॉट ऑफ शेम. So can technology save us from this? Maybe online clinics अगर हम रखें, क्या वो effective होंगी? You being in the profession, तो आपको क्या लगता है कि किस किस्म की effectiveness होगी अगर हम इस तरह की चीज़ों को implement करते हैं? And also like two things for law firms and two things.
Okay. सबसे पहली चीज़ तो इसके बारे में बात करना ज़रूरी है। जब हम इसको एक फॉर्मल लेवल पे टेकअप करते हैं, देखें बार एसोसिएशंस की वैसे कोई जिम्मेदारी नहीं है इस हवाले से, वो वैसे ही उनके और बेशुमार वकीलों के मसाइल हैं जिनको वो कोशिश करते हैं कि सुलझाएं और वकीलों को रिलीफ दें। लेकिन ये भी अब एक बहुत बड़ा मसला है और बनता जा रहा है एज वी डिस्कस फॉर वेरियस रीजंस। तो इसमें अगर हम सब मिल के बैठ के ऐसा एक इनिशिएटिव ला सकें और आपने कहा टेक्नोलॉजी की मदद से कर सकें कि जहाँ पे कि जी अगर मैं अपनी if I don't want to let's say discuss it with the profession at large or my firm at large that I am seeking help, I should be able to do so in the comfort and confidence of my home or my office, whatever that safe space is for me. So इससे भी एक बहुत बड़ा एक इफेक्ट आता है, बिकॉज एक तो ये चीज़ है कि जी आप काउंसलिंग ऑन साइट अवेलेबल करें, उसमें बहुत सारे लोगों को अलीज़े ने बहुत अच्छी बात की। उनको ये मसला हो सकता है कि मैं जाऊँगा तो आप देखेंगे और आप कहेंगे अच्छा जहांज़ेब तो जो है वो एक हेल्प सीख कर रहा है तो इसका तो कोई मसले मसाइल हैं। अभी भी एक टैबू है, एक स्टिग्मा है। सो baby steps, let's start by having this conversation, by providing that safe private zone where you can actually go and seek help, and it will bring about a radical change in the quality of the profession, how lawyers perceive it, how we view it. कुछ देखें हमारी unrealistic expectations भी होती हैं profession से, because जो मतलब TV dramas देख के या Netflix shows देख के हम लोग वकील बनने का फैसला करते हैं, reality is at least in our jurisdiction is in a stark contradiction to that. So वो भी एक मायूसी है जो आपको प्रोफेशन के शुरू में जिसका सामना करना पड़ता है, बिकॉज हमारे यहाँ अपने चैलेंजेस हैं। लेकिन जो हमारा माशाल्लाह एक मुल्क है, although we are 75 years old, but we are still a nascent country in the larger scheme of things. We have our own issues and our own challenges to deal with, and also in the legal profession. So वो हमारे मसले मसाइल हैं, लेकिन हमें रियलिस्टिकली अलीज़े ने बहुत अच्छी बात की कि हमें एक प्लान बनाना चाहिए और हमें देखना चाहिए कि am I only going to internalize it, complain about it and let it affect me, my mental health, my physical health, or am I going to do and take some steps to try and bring about that change? तो वो छोटी छोटी एफर्ट्स जब सब मिलके कर रहे हैं तो कतरा कतरा दरिया और समंदर बनता है। तो वो आई थिंक कोशिश और काबिश की ज़रूरत है, and I think we can go a long way in retaining good people in the profession, in encouraging good people to enter the profession.
Absolutely. I think we have spoken at length about the programs and the frameworks and the issue of
add one thing.
Yes, of course.
I think you mentioned earlier that co-workers can support each other. I think before the discussion you said एक lawyer है, if you're working individually, get together with 2-3 others, form a firm together. I think that support system is extremely important in any profession. Having people to lean on, having people to just share ideas with, just someone who's going through the day-to-day with you, I think makes a huge difference. And if you are working alone, maybe individual professionals can form like just an organization or a council or something where they can get together and support each other. Family, friends, they are a huge sense of support as well. So having people to rely on, to share with, to vent out is also really useful. Just wanted to add that.
That is very useful. So towards the end, just for 5 minutes, there is a little game that we want to play, and it's the answers should reflect your mental well-being or your whatever your mental health statement is. So I'm going to say a few words जिसमें आपको जो भी पहला चीज आपको दिमाग में आए, you have to say it out.
May I just say that Alizeh has an advantage in this game already. So एक तो जिस तरह हम गोल्फ में कहते हैं ना handicap, तो मुझे एक जरा थोड़ा सा handicap तो आप दे दें, ठीक है? Because obviously I'd be lagging behind her in this. She knows all the cue words.
I have few words for you which which will resonate with you. So.
And secondly, please don't publish the results on national TV.
What if you win? Okay, so I will start with you, Mr. Awan. So what comes to your mind when I say a weekend?
Ideally, time with family and friends, your loved ones, where you are able to de-stress and relax and let go of all the stresses of the week. That's something which comes to my mind. Spending time with my daughters, that's one thing which immediately springs to my mind, that I get to spend some quality time with them. And of course, other family members like my parents, my wife, and so forth. So the first thing that comes to my mind is close family and friends.
Wholesome. And what comes to your mind when you hear the word law?
Interestingly, I think maybe because you just mentioned Netflix, I immediately thought of that, like, that coat suit that's women wear on TV in in the law profession, which I'm sure that's really not what it is.
Except for it. But awesome. So, Mr. Awan, stress.
What comes to my mind when I think about stress? That's a very good point, actually. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that, and this is as a consequence of some work that I've done recently, is how to de-stress. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. So I often ask myself, and you are under stress for various reasons: work, professional life, and juggling other things. As to how, so I think one of the things that comes to my mind is to actually write it down and see how I can address whatever is causing me stress and how I can alleviate that to whatever extent I can. Stress, as Alizeh said, is an ingrained part of our profession. So
we have to give him a timer. He has to reply faster after you say the word.
Yeah.
Sorry, when you give a mic to a lawyer, as much as I try and be so concise and precise, but I can never be as articulate as you are.
No, but response time. You have the first thing that comes to your mind. I think that's
is to de-stress. How do I de-stress? That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Awesome. Rest.
Many things. My bed, sunlight from the window, my cat, my husband, my home.
Awesome. Mr. Awan, case law.
You need to have a magisterial command over case law, and you need to be armed with case law. What literally comes to my mind is that you're carrying a bunch of books, and let me say, my colleague sitting on the other side, Amna, let me acknowledge her, and of course my other colleagues in the practice, their formidable research skills have saved the day on so many occasions, and I really hope that this continues that way. So the immediate thing is, I'm carrying that law book with me literally into the courtroom, which will save the day for my clients.
Much better response time.
Absolutely.
See, we are also, this is also an exercise in free counseling with Alizeh.
Alizeh, judge.
Well, I imagine the judge sitting on the podium, someone with power, someone with authority, someone who can just, shut you up right now.
Okay. Amazing.
Order.
Yeah.
Mr. Awan, court.
The majesty of law. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. So when I think of court, I think of the steps of our Sen High Court leading up on the other side, where the judges enter from, and the Supreme Court, and I think it's just the whole majesty of the law. Yes, that comes to my mind immediately.
Awesome. Alizeh, happiness.
Again, sunshine.
Mr. Awan, family.
Very important, and family, and I'll include family like friends, are really at the heart of my life, and I'm fortunate to be surrounded by very loving and supportive, like immediate family, parents, wife, kids, siblings, and friends like family. I think to me, when I talk about my mental well-being, or I talk about my life in general, I think one thing that stands out for me is that I'm blessed to have a whole system of supportive and loving people, and people who love me unconditionally despite all my blemishes, who are in a part of my life, and that also includes my colleagues at work, who I spend the bulk of my work week and in turn life with. So I think I consider myself very blessed in that sense. I hope that meets with your approval.
Alizeh, what comes to your mind when we say boss?
Khushbakht Shah Jillani.
Yeah.
So please shed some light on this.
I'm on the back side of the camera, so yeah. You are completely real.
Sorry, I don't
No,
mean to-
not at all. But you are boss lady. There is that. But I think I've been very fortunate to be my own boss. Besides the first year that I worked, I have been, self-employed, running NGOs, running a business, being a therapist, all kind of worked for myself. I think it has its pros and cons. I hear a lot of other people saying that they struggle with disciplining themselves when they're working for themselves. But I think, not being under anybody else's authority, I think has a huge impact on my mental health.
Okay. So this ends our little game. We are going to end this session. I would like to thank you, Alizeh, and thank you so much, Mr. Awan, for also lending us this wonderful venue and just all the facilities. You've always been too kind to us. So towards the end, अगर कोई last words, anything that we have left out, कोई ऐसी चीज जो आप लोग चाहते हैं कि our viewers should know?
Yeah, I wanted to draw a comparison with my field, which is the therapy field, because there's a certain amount of emotional labor associated with both. You're really listening to your client, you're paying attention, or you're talking to the judge or whatever it is. So that kind of interaction, that presence of mind, and then also the pressure of that case that you're carrying on you, right? Like whatever the outcome is, how this case goes, you are responsible for it. So that's a huge sense of responsibility that we carry. So हमारे profession में there are some mechanisms in place to ensure that things are going okay for our well-being. जैसे कि we have supervisors जिसके पास हम अपने cases ले जाते हैं, confidence हम उनसे discuss करते हैं. A supervisor is usually a more experienced therapist, and they make sure that we're doing okay. They make sure that we're practicing ethically. हमें कोई guidance की ज़रूरत है. And then we are required also to be in therapy ourselves. अगर हम इतने लोगों का ले रहे हैं तो then we have to offload even more, right? And our well-being is even more important. Other than that, we have a limit कि हम कितने case loads ले सकते हैं at one time. So it's just an example. We've talked about the similarities between the two fields. आप लोगों की need भी बहुत ज़्यादा है to take care of yourself, to have systems in place that can cater to your well-being. So this is just an example.
It's a very important debate, and thank you for hosting a session on this subject. बहुत ही अहम मौजू है, and let's hope and let's try to see if we can translate this onto something for the benefit of sisters and brothers in the profession. Let's try and collaborate after the session as well to see how we can bring about, even if it's albeit a small change in the cultures of our firm and in the profession as well. So let's try and work towards achieving a more beneficial outcome for the profession at large.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Khushbakht, for doing
Thank you.
this.